In this episode, we talk about a little trip that I took with Aussie Chris. Maybe somebody remember him from the few episodes back. And can you really carry all day long without any issues? And if you have issues, what are they and how can we overcome them? This and a little bit more on the Range Minded Podcast. Pardon the noise a little bit. The heater's going. I've got my mic cranked up so I can at least hear myself. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. I have a question for you. Can you really carry all day long comfortably and not have anybody know? Let's get into it. So this weekend, well, I guess last week, whatever. It's been busy. I've noticed I haven't put down an episode for a little while. Life's been kind of crazy at work. And then, honestly, this past week, we had maybe a friend you might know. He's been on the show a couple times. We call him Aussie Chris. It's my buddy Chris Evans from down in Australia. He came up to visit on holiday. And Chris, if you haven't heard that episodes, I think we have a couple with Chris. He's an Aussie. He owns guns. Yes, you can own a gun in Australia. It's just not easy. And there's not a lot to choose from. He loves to shoot. And he's going to move to the United States. He just doesn't realize it yet. He knows he wants to come here and participate in freedom. Not that Australia is not a free country. It's just its freedoms are a little bit different, a different flavor, maybe a different intensity is what we enjoy here in the United States. Nonetheless, I digress, which you already know I do that a lot. When he was here, we were going to do a show, but honestly, we had way too much fun catching up. We decided on in the middle of the week. He came to help me work. He's like, I don't want to make it hard for you to not get work done. So on last Tuesday, he came to work with me, and he didn't realize, or he forgot what it was like to have to swing a hammer for a living. He's an office jockey. But on the Wednesday, the next day, we decided, you know what? We're taking the day off, and we're gonna go have some fun. And we went to so I live in southeastern Idaho. We went up into Yellowstone Park via Island Park. If you guys are familiar with Island Park, some of the best snowmobiling in the wintertime, a lot of good camping in the summertime. So we headed up through Island Park, came in through the west gate of Yellowstone, and we hung out in Yellowstone all day long. Now, Australia is a cool place. Not temperature-wise, it's actually bloody hot down there. But there are some amazing things to see while you're down there. If you've ever been to Sydney, you'll at least you can think of like the Opera House or Sydney Harbour Bridge. Sydney's a really cool city. If you go up north to the Gold Coast, from there, I mean you got Capitol Reef and a lot of cool stuff over there. If you come down across the bottom, you'll go into the Snowy Mountains, into Melbourne, where Chris is from, through Adelaide. If you go through the Shark Bite, which is the bottom half of the country, there's some roads you can take across there, all the way into Perth, which is on the west side, is where I lived for a while. Then you can go up north, which the north part of Australia is absolutely crazy. I've never had a chance to go up there. I've spent all my time in the southwest side of the country. But you get into Broome, North, Port Hedland, Darwin, all those places. It's amazing. Plus, you got crazy animals, right? I think when God made Australia, he knew that there wasn't a lot to look at, so he would just make a bunch of deadly creatures for you to stare at the ground and not step on, I guess. But there are some really cool things to see in Australia. But here in the States, I mean, there's no landscape, at least in Australia, that can compare to the United States. I know if you go to Europe, they've got mountains and glaciers and vistas that are amazing as well. But here in the United States, we just have stuff that's a little bit different, especially for an Aussie. So as we came in through the west gate of Yellowstone, if you've been there, there's lots of trees, right? There's not a lot to see coming into Yellowstone on that west side. We decided first place we would go is to Old Faithful, right? So we head down to Old Faithful. We missed by a few minutes. We missed the eruption, so we had to wait around for a little while. I think it erupts like every hour and a half, every hour and 45 minutes, something like that, somewhere around there. So we hung out and just waited. Went through the little visitor center that had just opened. We were too late in the season. I really wanted him to see the Old Faithful Lodge because that is amazing on the inside too. Ju- just the craftsmanship and the coolness of how they built that building. But it was closed for the season. But the visitor center was open. There's a new visitor center that's probably been there for years. I just haven't been there since then. So once we see Old Faithful, we decided, okay, let's go back up. We wanted to see or I wanted to take him to see the Yellowstone Falls and the canyon there, which, man, it is amazing. You can Google a picture of Yellowstone, the falls and the canyon, but it does not do it justice. And it is absolutely beautiful up there. And where it was a little later in the season, we didn't have to deal with as many people. The crowds it really wasn't bad. I've been there in the middle of summertime and it's just packed with people. But we were able to get some awesome pictures. Chris spent a lot of time taking pictures up there at the canyon. It was just amazing. And the way it feels when you get to a park like that, and I've never been to Yosemite or Glacier or any of these other places. I don't get around enough. And I imagine it's very similar to these other places too, that there's just it's just nothing. And when I mean nothing, like that there's beauty and there's peace and tranquility. But the awesome thing is there's no city. There's nothing to distract or take away. It's just beautiful, right? So after we went to the Yellowstone Falls, we decided we'd come down through the lake, past the lake, and then down into Jackson Hole. And if you've ever come that way, you'll be familiar with the east side of the Tetons. There's Jenny Lake, and I can't remember. There's some mountains north of the Tetons. I don't remember the name of them. I probably should, but it is just amazing. It's so picturesque. Jenny Lake was actually pretty dried up, so it wasn't as beautiful as it has been in the past at least that I remember. But nonetheless, as we came down into that part of the world, it was just starting to get dusk. So the sun was coming down. There's a couple pictures that I got of the sun just kind of starting to drift behind the Tetons. It's just amazing, right? Absolutely beautiful. And again, for Chris, that's never been to this part of the world. Well, that part of where he's been to Idaho Falls, but never been to Yellowstone or Teton Park or into Jackson Hole where we ended up later. Excuse me. It was just it's just awesome to share my little part of the world uh, with a friend that's never seen it before. So then we head down to Jackson Hole, right? And I love Jackson Hole. I don't necessarily love the people in Jackson Hole. There's a lot of people that may not feel the same way about the Second Amendment as we do, but there's also a lot of people that do, believe it or not. But it's a fun town. Jackson really hasn't changed a ton. Man, I got little gurgly gurgles going on. Excuse me. Jackson hasn't changed a ton since I was a kid. It has grown. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the landscape is the same. There's a lot of the same buildings. It's just not a lot is different, and some of that is the political climate, the political culture in that area. They don't want it to grow, which I appreciate, but it is a fun little town. We got some pizza there, then we came down the pass and back home. A very long day, mind you. It was probably like a 14-hour day in a rental car, just reminiscing about old times, having some pretty deep conversations about other things. It was a really good time. Now, this entire time, I was carrying a firearm the entire day. Some of you might say, well, that's no big deal. I do that all the time, anyways. And if you do, fantastic. More people need to be doing that if they have their permit or if they live in a state where they're able to carry concealed. And if they can legally carry concealed, let's put it that way. But Chris made mention now in the park, you can carry in the park, meaning Yellowstone. You can carry inside the park as long as you don't go inside of a structure. once you go into any structure inside Yellowstone National Park, that's a no-go, okay? And it's posted on all the buildings that there's no firearms. It doesn't say any pocket knives, though, I've noticed. But and I respect the law, right? I stowed the firearm in the rental car whenever we went to, like, the visitor center at Old Faithful. That's fine. I respect those laws. Um, but when we got to Jackson Hole, actually, honest, when we got back in the rental car, once I knew we weren't getting out again, I put the gun back on. And Chris made the comment. He says, "Have you been carrying this entire time?" And I said, "Yeah." And I had my one of my retro rifle Hawaiian shirts on, which not a sponsor. They should be. You need to check out their shirts. Um, yeah, I told him, "Yeah, I've been carrying this entire time." And he says, "That's absolutely awesome that you that I didn't see that you were carrying. There's nothing that indicated that you were carrying a gun, but you were able to carry." And I carry a 43. Nothing exciting, nothing special. But I carry an extra mag with me because it's okay to have ammo left over if you get in a gunfight. He's like he was just surprised that I was able to carry all day long because he doesn't, he doesn't live in a place where he can carry. And it wasn't bad, and I guess I'm used to carrying it. But I kind of take it, and maybe some of us that do carry a lot, maybe we take that for granted, that there are folks out there inside and outside this country that want to carry but are unable to carry for one reason or another. But as we do carry, and whether we carry at work or whatever we do, have you found that it's easier to carry the more you carry, or do you get frustrated sometimes? I know there's times I get frustrated, especially if I drive a lot, or honestly, it's even what vehicle I'm driving. Ooh, excuse me, yawning. Because maybe the position of the seat in the car is, I almost said car seat. That makes me sound like I'm a child, even though I'm a grown up child. All these things kind of add up, right? And make it sometimes uncomfortable to carry. But why do we give into those things, man? We should be proudly carrying because it's our right to, and carrying all day long. So I guess my question to you is, what are some of the things that you do that help you carry all day long? Or do you just ignore whatever burdens you might see there? Or what are some of the things that keep you from carrying all day long? Like I said, one of the things for me, if I'm driving in my little red car, the seat, it sits low to the ground, right? And the seats they just sit in the position to where it's tough for me to travel 4 or 5 hours with a gun appendix carry, which I still try to do, right? And sometimes it doesn't bother me. Maybe I eat too many road snacks, and that's when I get a little gastro problem. Ooh, excuse me. But maybe there's some other things that bug you, and you're like, no, I just can't do it. I know with Nick, we've talked about there's some psychological barriers that may keep you from carrying on any specific day, which I can understand and I can appreciate. I taught a class at Independence a few weeks ago, and we were talking. Well, I end up doing all the talking, I guess. That's no surprise, right? I talked to him about the now that they have it was something kind of like this. Now that you have the knowledge and the understanding and the importance of what it is or means to carry, hopefully you've taken into consideration the responsibility of carrying and maybe having to use that gun. And maybe on a given day, that responsibility might be a little heavier than what you want to carry. And I totally understand that, right? It's good to admit when maybe we need to fix some things or whatever. Maybe it's the size of gun that's keeping you from carrying. And if that's the case, you need to go you need to go gun shopping. Of course, it's always comes down to the money, right? Let's just spend more money. It's okay. Most ranges aren't going to let you holster and unholster a rental gun at the booth of the firing range. I understand that. Honestly, I would be a little uncomfortable with that if I was officiating at the range as well. Or maybe you need to find some friends that are carrying, maybe a little bit more seasoned in their firearms journey, that have several different kinds of guns with holsters that you can try out safely at a range. That you can say, yeah, this feels right. I don't like the way this one is. It might be time just to change the gun that you carry. Some of the other things that might keep you from carrying, honestly, are a good holster. And I know Nick can sustain me on this one. A good quality holster makes all the difference in the world. It is a huge boost for comfortable all day carry. Um, I I told you before I was a customer of Nick's before he was on the show. Um, I like his holsters. I like that there's some adjustability there. Some people don't like the idea of having a Kydex holster. They want a leather holster or whatever. That's totally cool. Um, there's a lot of options out there. And as you go through the journey of learning how to carry and what to carry or wanting to carry, you're gonna find that you're gonna pick up these little trinkets along the way, different holsters and different guns, and you're gonna just kind of mix and match to where, yeah, that's right. That this feels comfortable. One of the biggest things I know people neglect, and it's something that you should address right at the beginning, is a good quality belt. That will destroy the comfort of carry within a couple of hours. I guarantee it. You need to find a good, sturdy, concealed carry belt. Now, I'm not talking about going to the Army Navy store and they have this nice, whatever, high weave nylon strap or whatever, that's not the case. You need something that has some kind of an solid inner core. Like I think it's Mike's gun belt or whatever. Right now I'm going to butcher the name. They have actually like a piece of a spring steel inside the two sandwiches of leather that give that belt an immense amount of structure. Between that and the holster, those two things combined, that made me think of Captain Planet, right? Those two powers combined will make your carrying journey amazingly more comfortable. Now, some of this may seem cost prohibitive to some of you, and I understand that, but don't fall short. Don't just buy some cheapo belt from a big box store, because that will make a huge amount of difference. I promise you. So don't let those be an excuse of why you don't want to carry all day. If it's uncomfortable, you need to find the reason why it's uncomfortable. It's either your belt, your holster, both, or maybe it's the firearm. Okay? Don't let that stop holding you. If it's something emotional or psychological, that's something that you're going to have to work out with yourself, and I would highly suggest some one-on-one instruction, because you're not going to be able to overcome that hurdle in a big classroom environment. And maybe you can. Maybe I'm just rushing to judgment. But if it's something like that, I think you need to spend time one-on-one with an instructor, because there's something else going on. Maybe it's you feel like your knowledge base isn't at a level where you feel comfortable carrying, and that's fine. Honestly, more people need to feel that way too, because that's what hopefully will drive you to getting some more education. Education when it comes to carrying a defensive tool, whether it be a knife, pepper spray, whatever, gun, whatever it may be, you need you need to spend time in a classroom or one-on-one instruction with a competent instructor to get the knowledge of how to use that. Because misuse, like there is no excuse for, well, I didn't know how to use that, or maybe use that wrong. You can't use that in a court of law. That's not going to turn out well. But if you have a good, competent classroom structure or an instructor that's accredited, that he can prove what kind of content's in his classes if he has to in a court of law, that's going to help you immensely. I'm not an attorney. Don't take that with a grain of salt, but you can see how that may be. So back to my story, right? So here we are driving. I don't know how many miles we drove. I didn't map it out. But like I said, it was probably, yeah, it had to have been 14, 15 hours of just driving, getting out periodically, taking some pictures, having some fun, going in. We ate at a restaurant in Jackson. I carried the whole time. Um, if it's something that you feel like you're ready to do, then do it. I talked to my sister a while back. And honestly, some of these folks in the class I taught too, it's the same problem. They're concerned about carrying with one in the chamber. That might be a barrier for you to carry. I know there's some of you out there thinking that's absolutely ridiculous. But there are a lot of people that feel like they're not ready or comfortable to carry with a projectile, a cartridge in the chamber. That kind of is a psychological barrier for them. And I don't know what it might be. Maybe it's they're worried that the gun's gonna go off while they're carrying it, which is highly, highly unlikely unless you don't have a very good holster. Um, maybe they're just not ready to take the leap of knowing that gun is ready to use, right? That's one of the firearm safety rules. Um, well, we don't really talk about it, but they say keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. Um, that's not one of the 4 main, but it's one of the extra added on top of gun rules, right? Always store your firearms unloaded until ready to use. For me, when I get ready to carry, when I put that in the holster and ready to carry, that's ready to use. So that gun should be loaded. And I know there's folks out there that may disagree with me, and honestly, I don't care. Your gunfight's not my gunfight. I want every time advantage in my favor if I have to use a firearm in defense. And that fraction of a second of me retrieving my gun from the holster and racking the slide, I might need that time. And yeah, like I say, I want it in my favor. Action is always faster than reaction. And in every case of self-defense, it's an instant of reaction. And we need all the time we have to survive. Think about that for a minute. Anyway, what are some of the things that is keeping you from carrying? And if you can identify those things and you know what they are, that's great. But let's work through them, figure them out, find an instructor that can help you. Talk to some friends that can help you, and just make it worth your time. You know, I know there's a lot of folks out there that take concealed carry classes. They get kind of intimidated or maybe shocked about the reality of carrying a gun, and they never follow through, or they never carry a gun ever again. They go through the course, and they shoot their rounds if the state requires it. Then they think about how heavy that is, and they don't ever do it. No, don't get me wrong. I think it's fine to get the education. Honestly, I would encourage anybody, even if they're not carrying, to take the class just so they know and understand some of the philosophies of defense in some cases. But it also hurts me to think that they spent all this time and this money and this effort to take a course only to throw that away. Or maybe not throw it away, but put it by the wayside and not think about later on. Just like I was telling the last 2 classes I taught, this is the beginning of your firearms journey. We talk about a firearms journey a lot in this podcast because it is a journey, and everybody, no matter how long they've been involved in the Second Amendment or concealed carry or whatever, they're still on that journey. Whether you're Jerry Michalek or brand new person to the firearms community, we are all on a journey. And the nice thing about the journey is the more seasoned individuals, whether they be instructors or some of the YouTube personalities, because there's some personalities on YouTube I don't agree with, but they still have this knowledge base to share. And in my experience, there's a few of those really experienced in the journey folks that don't want to share. The majority of us in the community that's been there a while want to share. We want to bring people in and so they can enjoy the Second Amendment rights. We talked about the video, the CNN report a few weeks back, um, about minorities in Southern California taking classes and starting their journey in caring. They don't vote Republican. They don't vote conservative. These were liberal-minded blue voters that understand that, hey, there's a purpose for the Second Amendment. It's not about killing people, right? It's not about hunting. Don't confuse that either. It's about defense. It's about defense of enemies, whether it be somebody breaking into your house or tyranny altogether. And I know people hate that word. There's a segment of people that hate the whole thing about tyranny. Oh, you're never going to fight the government. We should never have to fight the government. The Constitution is there to protect the people and to restrict the government's power, not the other way around. And we need to remember that. As you go through this journey in the 2A community, reach out to people that you feel like you connect with. Even YouTube personalities. If you feel like you connect with somebody in particular, reach out to them. If you feel like you don't have anybody to reach out to, spend some time at the range, wherever you are. If you can find an indoor or an outdoor range, spend some time there. Don't be scared to talk to the people, no matter how you vote, no matter what you look like, no matter who you're attracted to. Reach out to some of these people in the community that have made that journey a little bit farther than you have. If I ever see you in the range and I mean, I'm just a normal dude. Like, honestly, I'm just an overweight, bald, white guy. But man, if you came up to me and asked me questions about something, I would love to have a conversation with you, no matter what you believe. Even if you're anti-gun, I would still love to have a conversation with you. We may not agree at the end. Maybe you'll have something that might open my eyes, or vice versa. But it's okay to talk, to reach out to these people. It's okay. And if you're an experienced shooter, if you felt like you've been on this journey for a long time and you're at the range and you see somebody that might need a hand that's new to this whole thing, don't be too proud to go over there and say hello. Hey, I noticed you're having some issues with your gun. Can I help you? Or I noticed you might have a question about something. What can I help you with? Don't be scared. Don't be scared to reach out to these folks. We need each other. There's so many fights coming down the pipeline as far as our constitutional rights are concerned. There's a lot coming down. There's been some really good things happening in the last few weeks, as far as some district courts, well, even some Supreme Court, obviously, rulings, but a lot of district level court stuff coming down against the ATF and some gun tyranny stuff. There's a lot coming down, but there's so much more. It's like a clogged hose, right? You get a little trickle of things here or there, but there's so much pressure building up behind it. I'm not sure what next year will bring. I'm not sure what the end of this year will bring. The ATF is talking about pistol brace stuff. We'll see what happens. I honestly think it could get pretty scary. But we need each other. We need to help each other. We need to be there for each other. Left or right, gay or straight, whatever it is. All of us making this 2A journey together, we need to stick together. We need to help each other. Guys, I appreciate you. I know this is a short episode, but I appreciate your time that you spend with us. Reach out to me. rangeminded@gmail.com. You can find me on my social media accounts, rangeminded podcast on Instagram. You can reach out to me personally on Instagram. That's Impractical Tactical. Or you can find us on Facebook. Just reach out. Love you guys. Be safe. Take somebody shooting, please. And remember who you are. See you guys. We know your time is precious, and we are so grateful that you hung out with us on this episode. If you liked what you heard, make sure you give us a big thumbs up and share us with your friends. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email me at rangeminded@gmail.com or find me on the socials, whether it be rangeminded on both Facebook and Instagram, or you can even find me on my personal page on Instagram, Impractical Tactical. Guys, I love you, I appreciate you, and dang it, take somebody shooting.